energy. So if you joined before, you could already see the slide. So please shut down your mic and your camera so that we not only save bandwidth, but we also save carbon dioxide emissions. Thanks for that, and we will be fully aligned with the call. So the session of today will be recorded and will be available on our website as soon as possible. And the same goes for the slides, which will be available. So normally you sign in for the following program, which is first welcome and introduction by our Secretary of State, Barbara Tracht. Then I will present you the funding scheme on the one hand, and on the other hand, we'll go a bit more into the detail of this year's topic. And after that, we'll have Q&A. So the presentation of the program and the topic probably will take less than 40 minutes, so we'll have more time for Q&A, which is, I believe, the most interesting part of the discussion. So I will then go directly to our Secretary of State. We have the chance to have you, Barbara. So I will give the floor for the opening address. Thank you.
Merci. Mesdames et messieurs, dames et heren, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Je suis ravie d'être avec vous cet après-midi pour introduire cette séance d'information. Je vous rassure, je ne serai pas très longue. Je voudrais remercier Innoviris d'abord pour l'organisation de cette session. C'est un programme important, hein, ce programme Joint R&D, puisqu'il rassemble à la fois le monde de la recherche et le monde des entreprises autour d'un objectif qui est un objectif commun, qui est celui de développer l'innovation et de la recherche dans le cadre et dans l'objectif de la transition économique de notre région. Il assure donc un dialogue et un passage entre le monde de la recherche et le monde de l'économie. C'est donc un maillon important dans la chaîne de l'innovation en région Bruxelles-Capitale, permet à l'innovation à la recherche de quitter les laboratoires des universités et de participer pleinement au dynamisme économique de notre région. On a particulièrement besoin pour l'instant, mais aussi de créer des nouveaux emplois et d'amener aussi notre région dans la direction de la transition économique et donc dans la réponse aussi aux défis climatiques, au bénéfice de toutes et de tous, ici et maintenant, et aussi des générations futures. U weet wellicht dat de regering ambitieuze klimaatdoelstellingen heeft vooropgesteld, de koolstofneutraliteit tegen 2050, voor zowel de rechtstreekse als de onrechtstreekse uitstoot die buiten ons grondgebied wordt geproduceerd voor gebruik op ons grondgebied. Om daar te geraken moeten wij ons economisch model aanpassen. Ons economisch model dat in onbeperkte groei in een beperkte wereld nastreeft. Daarom werk ik sinds het begin van de legislatuur samen met mijn overheidsdiensten aan een geleidelijke heroriëntering van alle economische steuninstrumenten naar lokale, koolstofarme, circulaire, sociale en démocratische économische activiteiten. L'objectif, c'est qu'en 2030, l'ensemble des programmes d'aide aux entreprises soient réorientés ou aient été réorientés en 2030 vers ceux et celles qui ont une plus-value, qui présentent une plus-value sur le plan social et environnemental. L'année dernière, on avait déjà réorienté cet appel à projet-ci sur le thème de l'industrie verte, humaine et intelligente. Et pour cette édition aussi, en 2021, nous avons décidé de rentrer dans le cœur de la transition économique et écologique, énergétique en l'occurrence, puisqu'on parle d'énergie décarbonée à toutes ses étapes, depuis la production, la distribution, le stockage, sans oublier l'utilisation rationnelle et la performance énergétique, puisque le meilleur moyen de décarboner notre énergie est évidemment de ne pas consommer de l'énergie inutile. Dit thema beslaat ook een strategisch innovatiedomein in het hart van de gewestelijk innovatieplan, dat de regering binnenkort zal goedkeuren. Dit nieuwe gewestelijk innovatieplan moest, wat mij betreft, participatief zijn, om te voldoen aan de behoeften van het Brusselse innovatie-ecosysteem en te beantwoorden aan de geïdentificeerde maatschappelijke uitdagingen, waaronder de klimaatverandering, en het koolstofbaar maken van onze manier van leven. Ik wens er ook een maatschappelijke innovatie van te maken. Het gewestelijk innovatieplan beschouwt energie als grondstof en daarvoor komen alle innoverende activiteiten die het energiebeheer ten goede komen in aanmerking. L'innovation passe souvent par la technologie, mais la technologie pure et dure ne permettra pas de résoudre seule la crise climatique. Je pense que ce serait se bercer d'illusions de penser cela. Et donc, je voudrais rappeler ici ou appeler au futur, à ceux et celles qui voudront introduire des projets dans le cadre de cet appel, comme dans le cadre futur du plan régional d'innovation, appeler ceux et celles que l'innovation sociale intéresse ou les low-tech, qui sont souvent des solutions techniques simples, moins énergivores, qui mettent l'accent plus sur l'ingéniosité que sur la complexité ou sur la sophistication des produits. Et qui aussi rendent ces produits plus facilement réparables, par exemple. Au niveau de l'innovation sociale, il peut par exemple s'agir de la mise en réseau d'acteurs pour mieux penser l'utilisation et le stockage des énergies renouvelables. C'est un exemple. J'invite donc la communauté low-tech bruxelloise ainsi que les entreprises sociales et démocratiques à s'inscrire aussi dans des appels comme celui qu'on lance aujourd'hui. En parallèle, il faudra évidemment une prise de conscience et un changement du comportement institutionnel, d'une part, donc ça c'est en cours, collectif et individuel pour atteindre cette neutralité carbone en 2050. C'est donc aussi un combat, une bataille culturelle qu'on essaye de mener avec mes collègues. Et vous, vous permettez finalement, en parallèle à cela, l'émergence d'une offre. Nous nous engageons aussi, nous allons faire le maximum pour encourager la demande à travers bien sûr les marchés publics, mais aussi la législation, la sensibilisation et la participation citoyenne. Vous voyez qu'on est dans un cercle vertueux. On compte donc sur vous, les chercheuses et les chercheurs, sur les entrepreneurs et les entrepreneurs pour avancer main dans la main sur le chemin de la transition économique et développer des projets qui feront de Bruxelles effectivement une région neutre sur le plan de l'énergie et du carbone, plutôt sur le plan du carbone que de l'énergie, sur le plan du carbone. Mais nous n'avons jamais eu autant besoin de vous qu'aujourd'hui et en répondant à cet appel à projet, vous rejoindrez les pionniers de la transition économique qui font de Bruxelles une région plus résiliente au bénéfice de toutes et de tous. Je suis convaincue que vous avez tous déjà plein d'idées, sinon vous ne seriez pas là aujourd'hui et donc on sera à vos côtés pour les concrétiser. Je vous souhaite donc une belle fin d'après-midi, riche en échanges. J'espère que ces échanges permettront de faire émerger des convergences entre les envies, les idées des uns et les disponibilités, les compétences, les intérêts économiques des autres. Évidemment, comme toujours, on aurait préféré que ça se fasse en présentiel et que des rencontres puissent se faire en présentiel. Enfin, voilà. Pour l'instant, c'est encore de cette manière-ci. J'espère néanmoins que ça n'affectera pas la qualité de vos échanges. Je vous remercie pour votre attention. Bedankt voor uw aandacht.
Super, merci beaucoup. Merci d'être aussi supportrice de tous nos appels comme vous le faites et de nous dégager des budgets comme ça. Nous, en tant que conseillers, on peut faire des chouettes trucs et qui mènent à des projets intéressants. Donc, merci beaucoup. I'll then move to English back again and go back to the agenda. So now I'll present you the program, the funding scheme of today. So this joint R&D call, some of you know it under the name Team Up. So the new name is Joint R&D, but formerly it was this Team Up call. A goal is really, as you understood in the speech and in the introduction, to really foster the collaboration between industry and academia. And we launched this already end of 2016. We start with artificial intelligence. Then we moved to decentralized systems in 2018. And then in 2019, we changed. So we passed from a technical call, artificial intelligence, decentralized system, to more a sectorial call with, in 2019, predictive medicine. Last year, that was explained, was Industry of Tomorrow, Green, Human, and Smart. And this year, we are talking about energy and carbon neutral systems. So the funding scheme is the following. So we really a genuine collaboration between academia and industry. We want that the IP, the intelligence generated at the academic side is transferred into the company's portfolio in terms of services or products. To foster this, we finance this at a high level rate, which is, you cannot go above 100% for academia. That's pretty interesting. So we fully fund the academic partner. When we say academia here, you have to know that these are, of course, the university labs, but also the higher education schools, and also the research centers like CIRIS or CSTC. On the industry side, so the companies, which can be also non-profit, but would be considered as companies, the funding rate is between 40 and 60%, depending on the size of the company. So a small company will get 60%, and a large group will get 40%. So if you take then the average funding rate, you get like something like 70, 80%, which is really unique. And anyway, you don't find this in the other regions of the country, for example. So there's virtually no reason to innovate with us. When I say collaboration, there can be several schemes. So the classical scheme that we have is one lab collaborating with one company. That's kind of easy collaboration. But you could have, for example, project with a lab with a technical expertise and a second lab with a more societal expertise, because often this project covers many topics. But you could also have two companies with different backgrounds collaborating with one lab. So there's virtually no constraints here, at least that you have to have one academic partner and one company or one private sector actor. For you to know, classically, we have a one-to-one collaboration, but we got up to 5 partners into one project. Okay, I move further. The constraint of the program is on your left-hand side. That's the amount of efforts per partner. So as I said, what we want is our genuine collaboration, not fake collaboration. So we want to avoid a case, for example, or where the academic partner would do 90% of the job and the industry 10%. That's not a genuine collaboration, we do believe. So we impose that at least 1/3 of the effort is coming from the industry and 1/3 of the effort from the academia. So if you reverse this mathematically, that means that one type of partner could not have more than double the efforts of the other partner. When I say effort, it's really person months, not budget, because the funding scheme is different. Project duration, so between 1.5 years and 3 years. So because below 1.5 years, this is pretty hard to get some really true research work. And beyond 3 years, it's starting to be too long for startups, of course. This is also to account for 1 year of setting up the project and so on. So these are pretty long time for the industry. So 3 years is really a maximum. What we like to see is projects typically around 2 years. We believe are quite the sweet spot here, but that's really also depending on the sector itself. The call is launched today, as you know, and it's a 2-stage call. So first of all, there's a stage which is called expression of interest, where you're gonna submit kind of a small summary of your project ideas. You present the consortium, you present your budget, you present your valorization pathway, and this has to be sent to us by the 22nd of October this year. It's like 5-6 pages, so that doesn't take so long. The key will let you time, however, to really find this collaboration. It's not always easy, especially because we have also the holidays coming in. So we have enough time to do so. After that, we analyze this and we give you either a green light or a red light. And we try to do this as soon as possible, but maximum by 1st of December, to invite you, for the positive case, to submit a full proposal. This is more like a 50-60 page document. So there's a kind of factor 10 in terms of pages. And the deadline is 22nd of February. So you have there kind of 3 months to write this proposal. After that, we have the jury. So the jury is composed of experts from academia, but as well one expert from Innoviris to evaluate the valorization plan or potential of the project, because we don't give you money for fun, but really with a true objective and valorization potential. Jury would take place as soon as possible after the deadline, but we expect this in April or May next year. After that, the project can start. Okay, eligibility. You've got to have, because it's Innoviris, that's the Brussels region, you've got to have your R&D activity in Brussels. As for the companies, they have to be financially okay, so there are some legal criteria there to be fulfilled. You have to have your enough own funds to cover everything. Of course, you've got to match with the definition of the call, this year's call, and you have to write the right balance of effort. That's what the rule 1/3, 2/3 that I explained before. So this is more for the expression of interest, more of a kind of an eligibility check. If we have too many candidates, we also evaluate the quality, but we don't expect that will be the case. After that, for the jury, not only you have the eligibility, but you've got also the evaluation criteria to give you a quote, a note of the project, and to rank the project. Again, we are Innoviris, so we expect the project to be really truly innovative. For the academic partner, we expect also excellence in research, so with ambitious publication goals, for example. So we should target excellence here. That by essence of the project, we want technological transfer and synergies. So there should be really a 1 + 1 more than 2 relationship between the two. So that's not everybody's working on its side. That's really a true collaboration. We want to see this in your text and in your defense. And you want, of course, that you contribute to the main objective, which is this end goal of a carbon neutrality in our energy. Next to that, you've got, of course, business and societal valorization. So business is to be positive and that we can see the impact on your company. So the goal is you have to have really an inflection point on your company, not to finance the classical of the company. You should have really an inflection point. And also that's always positive to have some societal positive points also to list. There will be, of course, this carbon dioxide goal, but you can have also other positive societal goals. Okay, that's for the evaluation criterion. I go back to the scheduling just to explain you one extra subsidy. So there's the subsidy of the main project once it's accepted, but because for small companies, there's sometimes a barrier to entry in these kind of really big calls, strategic calls, is to put, for example, one guy 2 months to write a proposal where it could be more useful in the company because that takes case and so on. We somehow will cover these risks for you by giving you a small subsidy for the writing of the full proposal. That's what you see here. So that covers the period between the start and the end of the writing of the proposal. That means between 1st of December till 22nd of February. So there you can get, that's what I explain you here in the slide, you can get a subsidy of maximum 7.5k euro per partner. That's for everyone in the consortium. And that's to cover the cost of your personnel, so that guy who's going to work on the proposal, but also some legal advice you could require to set up a collaboration agreement with your partners. And then there's an automatic payment. When you submit the full proposal, then you will get the money, okay? To get this, it's not automatic. To get it, you have to fill in a form which is available in the template I will show you afterwards, okay? Before finishing the presentation of the joint R&D, couple of lessons learned. So we want you really to start early as possible, at least the academic side is used to that, to discuss really early in the process about intellectual property, because you're going to collaborate. There will be shared IP, there will be IP owned by one partner or IP owned by the other partner. How are you going to deal with this? So you have to start really early the discussion, because we, unfortunately, in the past had some projects which never started, even though were accepted and funded by the government. They never started because they couldn't agree on the terms of the legal aspects, of the IP aspects. So it's a complicated matter, especially if you have never done it on the company side. So we want you to start early as possible here, and you have considered the case for the expression of interest already. That's also the reason why in the previous slide there's this legal advice line. It's really to help you. You can take some legal advice. You can pay 1 day of a lawyer, for example, to work out with you a collaboration agreement framework, for example. Okay. We also noticed that in some larger companies, there's some department working on their own, and then afterwards they get troubles to get the sponsorship from the top management. We had a couple of projects not starting because of that. So don't do it on your side and really involve your top management as soon as possible in the process. And eventually, probably the key message here is do not force it. So there are several constraints to this course. You want to collaborate on the one hand. There's a timing associated that should fit you, and there's a topic that should fit you. So that's quite some conditions to fulfill. So if it doesn't work or half work, just don't do it. Eventually it never flies. That's from our experience. Rather contact us, Innoviris, to investigate alternative funding scheme for your ideas. And I remind everyone that we are always welcoming people to join us. Okay, good. I'm gonna move then to the presentation of the topic, which is, as you know, towards zero carbon energy. The context first. How do we ended up here? So you all know that Greta was not happy, so we did everything for her. So we started with the EU Green Deal, and we can be really proud that really Europe is at the forefront here of these green aspects, with a commitment for carbon neutrality by 2050. But it has also triggered movements in other regions of the world, and in China, for example, they also go that way with the, I'm trying to get control of my screen. Yeah. Here. With the new American White House administration, we are also moving the right direction, so that's pretty nice. You have also to know that more than 130 countries in the world have committed to carbon neutrality as well. So there's a big movement that we cannot stop, I believe, and this is nice. As our Secretary of State mentioned, Brussels is also committing to carbon neutrality by 2050. You mentioned the cities also doing it as well. Everybody is doing it. The private sector is doing it. So if you see Audi Brussels, for example, they have already achieved carbon neutrality in their operation in Brussels. But also, and this is an interesting one, the investors are also committing to carbon neutrality. This is an article from WWF. So everything happens. And finally, I've got another press release that probably many of you saw in the press. That was a kind of big boom in the domain. That was a report from the International Energy Agency, who is also calling for carbon neutrality by 2050 and calling to stop all coal mines, all fields, new project as from now. So that's was really a boom into the domain and a revolution, we believe. So the trend is there. It's more than a trend. It's a big movement, and we want to be part of it, the Brussels region and Innoviris in particular. So to achieve this, there's really for sure a combination of many things. You can invest a lot, you can tax, you can incentivize. There's many options. You can plant trees, and you can innovate. And that's what we want to do, of course, Innoviris, is to help you innovate, to contribute to this global objective. So we divided the call in 3 main pillars. First one is energy production, second one is energy distribution and storage, and finally it's about energy efficiency. So I have one slide to discuss each of the pillars. After that, I will have a couple of examples for you. So the first one is energy production. So there we focus on the renewables, of course, which is solar, wind, hydro, geo, and biomass. So you can also understand that nuclear energy is not considered as a renewable energy, so we should not get it in your proposal. So that should be along these lines. And then we have defined 3 sub-axes for that pillar. The first one is to increase the harvesting efficiency. So classical case, you're gonna work on a more efficient solar panels. So you're gonna go from 25% to 27% efficiency, for example. But you could also, that's pretty demanding, many people are working on this, but you could also increase the efficiency by, for example, maximizing the on time of the system. So working on a better maintenance systems of these solar panels or of these windmills. So if they can be on during 98% of the time instead of 96, that will be very positive and that will contribute to our global goal to foster these carbon neutral energy systems. Okay. So it's not just about the harvester itself, but all the environment around. So the sky's the limit. There's quite some freedom for you to brainstorm innovative project there. Also, the costs are decreasing, but we can do better. So if you come up with projects that are minimizing the cost of investment for people to invest in these systems, that's also very welcome. Also, that's part of the deal. If you can decrease the maintenance cost of this system, that's also very welcome. So there's quite some possibilities for you to brainstorm and come up with new ideas. Also, we are Brussels, so often these energy by essence, they are typically, except the solar panels, outside of the city. So we like you to also consider, brainstorm, and come up eventually with projects which are trying to take these systems, harvesters, into the city. So you could have, for example, different designs of windmills to integrate better into the urban environment and so on. So I believe there's quite still some potential there, because eventually also in the world we're gonna be 70% living in the cities. So bringing back the consumption and the production at the same place is something we want to work on. Okay, trying to find back my slide. Yes, so another another component here that we added here is the micro harvesters. So what we talked about before, these are the consumption from your household. So these are kilowatt hours, but we also included in the call something pretty interesting for industry and the academic lab in particular. These are the micro harvesters. So classical example is your IoT sensors. So typically either you have to cable them to power them, or you have to use batteries. That means also maintenance, to change the batteries and so on. So we want you to also brainstorm and potentially come up with projects working on micro harvester that could lead to getting away the batteries. So you have a battery-less schemes. So that means less maintenance and less pollution because you don't have batteries. So you want revolutionize the world in terms of carbon dioxide, because these are micro levels, even though you will participate, but you'll get rid of batteries. So you get a second positive impact there. So the sky's the limit. Here you can get the energy from vibration, from thermal, from electromagnetic waves as well. There's quite some possibilities there to feed all these sensors, these billions of sensors, and get rid of this battery. Okay, that was for the first pillar. I would like also to underline the fact that this is an energy call, so that's not an electricity call. We don't tend to confuse the two. But for example, geothermal energy, that's heat. You could have heat systems, heat networks, and so on. There's also quite of a world beyond electricity. Okay, so don't forget these aspects as well. I move to the next pillar, which is energy distribution and storage. This is a pretty obvious pillar next to the first one because of these energies are not permanent, they are intermittent. So you have definitely to store them or to cope with this intermittence. So that's leading quite some interesting challenges for the network at the network side. So, and then you've got all these smart grid systems to better balance the offer and the demand. And something which is also very popular now, which is this, I would say, smaller grids or communities, energy communities, that you have local production and local sharing and exchange of energy inside a small network. This is pretty hot topic with also quite some challenges. There also the legislation is changing. So we are translating the EU legislation now actually in the different regions of Belgium. So there's a big market coming in and with quite still some challenges to be tackled. Storage, obviously, there's everything about batteries, but not only. In the batteries case, sustainability, if you can find better materials, I mean, more sustainable materials, energy density, charging time, that's pretty interesting. So you can work on the battery itself, but again, you can work on the environment of the battery, all the software associated, the storage system, the distribution, the EV charging stations, for example. There are also some interesting problems to be tackled there. Eventually, green hydrogen. So for the one who don't know, green hydrogen means the hydrogen which is generated thanks to renewable energy. And this is an interesting means to store, on the one hand, energy, but also as a means of distributing the energy. So you can feed into our gas networks already today. So there's also quite some potential there, but still many challenges because that technology is not yet super efficient. So also very much to welcome project in that direction. So then you see triple dot. That means that contrary to the first pillar, which the three axes were defined, in this pillar, the sky's the limit. So you can really brainstorm innovative projects along these lines, along this title, and go beyond these suggestions that you have here. Okay. Next slide up, which is this one, which is about energy efficiency. Again, same principle. These are suggestions, not boundaries. So probably the most carbon dioxide generator is the heating of the houses. So we do believe, and that we see in the research world, that there are still some researches and some room for improvement in the heating and the cooling of the buildings. So we have a lot in Brussels and a lot of offices and so on, especially in this remote working time. How do you cope with this? So you could have sensors and so on. There's pretty interesting challenge to be still tackled there. We could think that a lot has to be done, but there's still a lot of potential there to make this new building more efficient. Along these lines, once the building is constructed, but before that, you could also work on some interesting innovative project on the construction of the building itself, on the insulation of the building. There's quite some activities in Brussels around there. This Renault Lab, for example, we can cite. There's a lot of potential there because that's one of the main carbon dioxide generator. These are the buildings. So we want you to come up with projects along these lines. Another obvious carbon dioxide generator is the transport system. So there's also plenty of room, not just increasing the efficiency of your car, but you can brainstorm many more interesting topics. For example, route planners, where you could save a lot of energy there by optimizing your system, especially for the deliveries of goods. You still see many more delivery cars in all the streets in Brussels. We do believe that there's there's optimization there to happen. You could have also systems around eco-driving there, quite some possibilities. But again, the ball is yours. Lighting, it's also often overlooked. But today with technology we have, we can do much better with more smarter systems, which is more adaptive and not lighting the whole night some buildings, for example. So these were the 3 pillars. What I want to, in the next slides, to stress as well, and that has been underlined as well by our Secretary of State, is that this is not just a high-tech goal. This is not a high-tech goal, point. We also very much welcome lower tech projects. I will give you one example afterwards. And also definitely social sciences oriented project or mixed project with integrating technology and social sciences. We don't want a fully tech project, and definitely we don't want over tech projects where, for example, you could have an additional tech layer which is destroying the whole advantage you would have in terms of emissions. So have a balanced approach here. That's our message. Okay. I will give you 5 examples. You will find 10 of them in the document. Again, these are not boundaries. These are just to foster discussion, innovation, reflections, and so on among you. The first one is a tech project, but I like the name Innover because it's close to our name. They do inspections of windmills, the blades, thanks to automated drones. So why I'm coming with this, they have better efficiency, then they can have a more on time of the windmills and then just increase the production of this wind-based energy. Second example, LeafTech. So these are startups you can find on the web. We have put the link into the documents as well. They do, I would say, a digital twin of your building, thanks to AI as well, to have a better management of the energy of your building and eventually reduce your cost and as well reduce your emissions. Okay. Next one, this is a pure social science project, which is called Nudge. This is a H2020, so EU project. What they do is to design to foster the consumer behavior here. In the introduction, I told you you better switch your camera to save carbon dioxide. This is very true. You have to know that putting your camera on in a Teams meeting like this is like 500 grams of carbon dioxide per hour. So everything has been for sure optimized at the Microsoft level. But if the consumer is behaving without thinking and opening all tabs, that doesn't fly. So it's important. We also would like to have this more consumer sides aspects in our portfolios of projects afterwards. Okay. Other one, Kinergizer. That's what I explained about the micro harvesters. So instead of cabling a whole factory, they have developed small sensors which are taking the energy from the vibration of the machines. Pretty interesting as well. And another one, the last example, which is this. This is a crowd-funded project. She's called No Light. What they do is really a rather simple mechanical system. You pull a rope during maybe 2 minutes, I think, and you get 20 minutes of light. Or you could perhaps charge your cell phone as well. This can be very interesting in Africa, for example, or even for you in a camping where there's no electricity. So this is an example of low tech, but still it's not trivial. So you might need an academic collaboration to design this kind of system. So again, these were 5 examples just for you to brainstorm, to have ideas. But we want you to surprise us with other ideas. Okay, I'll finish with one slide, then that will be the Q&A session. One slide is about the document. So you can go already today on the website, innovaris.brussels. You find for a call join R&D, and you'll find a form that you see at the bottom of the slide here, that we put everything in a single document. You've got on the one hand the rules, you've got the description of the topic, you got the form for the sending us the expression of interest, and you've got a form for the Connect subsidy to cover your cost of writing the proposal. Okay, so that's for the material available online. As I said, we will also put the slides available, and we'll put the recording of the session of today. And in any case, if you would have any issue, and you can see on the screenshot on the right, you can always contact me, email me, or call me. I will be very happy to answer your questions. And we can already start now and take your questions. I hope everything was clear for you. What I suggest for the questions is that you raise your hand and then we give you the floor. Okay, you say who you are, and then I try to answer your questions. Okay, good. I see a raised hand by Kinkai. Kin, can you kick off the session?
Yes, thank you, Jonathan, for the nice presentation. It's very helpful. So I'm Kinkai from VUB Tech Transfer, so I support the researchers from VUB. I noticed regarding the timeline that you have set the deadline for the expression of interest is 22nd of October, but that that we also have to submit the full proposal the 1st of December. So when do you expect to have a clear answer for a go, no go to the full proposal? Okay. Because I see it's quite tight with 1 month and a few days.
So that's a misunderstanding. I'm gonna try to reshare it was not explained good for me. So the deadline is indeed 22nd of October for the expression of interest. On the 1st of December, we'll give you the go, no go.
Okay. Yeah.
Full proposal. The full proposal is due in February. Okay, I'm gonna try to show you the slide again. But maybe my slide probably was not clear neither. Yeah, here I'm gonna share. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so that's what you see here. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, so expression of interest deadline on 22nd of October. Invitation to submit full proposal. So that's an invitation to submit. That's not a submission.
Okay.
Submission is 22nd of February.
Okay. And then I have another question. Last year, I remember that you mentioned that, for example, a startup with 2 people, that they were not eligible to submit. Is that still the case?
The thing is, you should fit. That's depending on the sector. I would say, for example, in the biotech sector, you could think about this, but these are lengthy projects for a startup. So that means typically 24 months. And you see this calendar, you have 1 year. So that means these are 3-year projects. What I was advocating at that time, I believe, is that small companies with 2 people, probably that don't have yet a market fit. That's probably too early for them to apply for this kind of calls. I would say the minimum to enter this call and to be credible is to have achieved a market fit with your product. Once you have this, you can say, okay, I'm going to start to invest and define a roadmap. Sometimes at early stage startup, they still iterate and try to find a niche. If you are at that time, then you're not fitting this kind of strategic program or project. Is that clear for you?
Okay, yes. And then the last one. So for the eligibility check of the companies, we can still send you an email for that, I guess.
Sure.
And I believe you also last year it was like if the partner of interest can file a public procurement, they were not allowed, right?
Yeah, that can, okay. But indeed for more public or semi-public authorities, that would be applicants, we have to deep dive analyze. So I rather would advise you to contact us and that we study on a per case by case basis. It's difficult to come up with a general rule like this. So if you are in doubt, please come to us before losing time maybe and write a proposal. Okay?
Okay, thanks. That was it. Thank you.
Good, thanks a lot. I see that Julien is also calling for the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, first of all, for the very interesting presentation. My name is Julien Blondeau. I'm a professor at the VUB. I had a question about the pillars. Maybe you said it, but just to be sure, would it be acceptable to you to cover several of those pillars?
Of course, yes.
And if yes, wouldn't you consider it as too broad? Is it something you can imagine that we, for instance, production and distribution?
No, of course, and for example, green hydrogen is also often linked together. So definitely these are not silos, and you can work. It's also very interesting problems between the two of them, production and distribution, for example, that's quite linked together. So definitely, as soon as you have a clear valorization path, you're more than welcome to tap into several of them.
And to be more precise, then the innovation and the added value can be, I would say, focused on the integration of production and distribution, for instance. That's something that would be acceptable.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. You have for the academic partner, I would say an easy criteria is that you should be able to publish.
Okay.
That's the main thing, and for the industrial partner to bring some novelty into the market.
Okay, clear. Thanks.
Thanks. Roel, floor is yours.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yes, I want to continue. I'm Roel de Koning from Delta Q, and I want to continue on the question of Julien. Would it be interesting in a consortium to add an additional partner in order to cover an additional pillar? If that fits, of course, or would it not bring additional chances of success for the consortium?
No, that will not raise your chance of success. You should not try to please us, but that should please the project itself. If that's reinforcing the project itself, that's very welcome, but you should not try to, I would say, engineer a consortium to potentially please us. No, what we look at is the project, the goal of the project, the valorization of the project, and then from that we derive if your consortium is making sense or not the other way around, I would say.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you.
Good, welcome. I do not see other hands up. Very happy, it was very clear. So I'll give you 1 minute to brainstorm the questions if you would have. Anneke, floor is yours.
Yes, so one small question. I'm quite new in this business. I'm working as a business developer for the VUB. And my question is, if we have several companies in the consortium, do all of them need to be based in Brussels?
Yes, they could be beyond Brussels, but we cannot fund them. That's the thing. To get Brussels money, you have to be indeed have your activities, your R&D activities of the project in the region, indeed.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Yeah, but you could have one company but we cannot fund them.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately.
Yeah. Okay. So one other company can be in, but the funding is only going to the companies that are based in Brussels.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nicolas from CIRIS.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks, Jonathan. Indeed, I'm Nicolas Gonzalez-Deleito from CIRIS. Continuing on the question from Anneke, perhaps a similar, a related question that we got several times. Imagine a company that would collaborate with another research center, but from a region outside Brussels, from a different region. the company could subcontract that research center. Could they receive support for this collaboration? And this would be one first question. Second question would be regarding the IP. Is there any specific constraint, or via this subcontracting, the IP would, as classically done, go directly to the company?
Yeah, okay, these are good technical questions. Thanks for that. So, so a company could subcontract to another company beyond the Brussels region and include this in its project budget. However, this has to be a pretty limited part of the job. It's not
absolutely.
It's not because you want to collaborate with that, it's not eligible, then you put on your budget. A classical example would be that in these energy systems, you have all the question of cybersecurity, for example, which is a sport in itself, I would say, and you would need to have, I don't know, 4 months of consultancy that you cannot find in Brussels. That's too, it's not big enough to be a true partner. So, and you don't have the competencies internally, so you can put it as a subcontractor. But it's not the idea to put a really full research track under subcontracting.
Of course, yeah.
And in terms of IP, so that's what you negotiate when you have a contract, subcontracting contract. So that's a bit yours. Typically in the subcontracting scheme, the one who pays, in that way, that would be the company, get hold of the IP. That's typically what's happening.
Yeah. So no particular constraints at that level.
No, for us, no. For us, that should be a rather small amount, and that should make sense that it's not available in the consortium, and that's a small part of the question, but an important part. For example, the cybersecurity question can be key in some projects.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Good. Is there any more questions, or everybody is willing to go for barbecue? Okay, I see Frédéric from Energies. Hello, Frédéric, bonjour. You're muted. Yeah.
Okay, so it's better. Yes, I'm Frédéric from Energies. Thank you for the explanations. I have one question. Could you clarify how you will evaluate the different proposals? So what will the KPIs be that Innoviris will use somehow to rank? Is it based on the decrease of carbon emissions? Is it based on the employment we will generate in Brussels region? So
yeah. So these are, I'm displaying the evaluation criteria. So there are several of them. With a mistake here. I'm correcting. So I would say this is a multi-component, and for you to know the way we work, we have a kind of evaluation grid, which is taking into account all these lines, and we have it's a grading. You have a scale of 5 levels, and then that's the way we work with the expert for these different dimensions. No, it's not the one who's gonna save 150 tons of carbon dioxide that will be necessarily better than the one with 100 tons of carbon dioxide. That's definitely not the way we're gonna evaluate them. So there's if you want an algorithm for the evaluation, I don't have. That's the grid we have, and we browse through really different criteria, which is the innovation character, the research, and so on. After that, we can do kind of mathematics of this, and the carbon dioxide component will be one line of them. But you have also a line about the business impact, a line about the environmental impact, and so on. So there's the key thing is to, I would say, the carbon dioxide is more a question of eligibility. That's the topic of the call. And then you get all the other dimensions that are popping in.
Okay.
I'm afraid I don't have a mathematical answer to you.
Oh, okay. But it's already a bit more clear. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks, you're welcome. Is that good for you guys? Okay, I think so. So just a reminder, when you sign in for the event on Eventbrite, we let you put your either request for competencies or project you are willing to collaborate with. We're gonna do the exercise, at least I hope my colleagues from communication will do, is to share this information among you, at least for the one who signed that they were willing to share the information, to have this kind of matchmaking. It's a big word. In the past, for this call, we used to have a physical event with tables, presentations, and so on, but with this COVID time, it's a bit more complicated. So we'll try to do it a bit offline like this. If you're a company, it's rather easy to contact the universities or the higher education school or the research centers. If you don't have the names or the contacts, you can come to me. I will make the link as well. Okay. Thanks. I don't see any arms or hands up, so I believe we can stop here and let you go for your barbecue. Okay, good. Thanks a lot. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jonathan. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.